So is that why it's so frustrating to the legal system when police, for instance, trample over a crime scene or mishandle evidence?
I think that one needs to look at a bigger picture here, and people are very quick to point fingers at the police because they are often first on the crime scene. The case of my father, for instance, he was murdered, and there were a number of crucial events that occurred that essentially rendered the crime scene useless, and that there was no evidence that was left behind. And it wasn't only the police, and none of the actions on that particular crime scene were deliberate. So when we use the word tampering, there's often a sense that that's deliberate tampering with a crime scene, whereas in fact it's contamination that we really are talking about here. And in my father's case, there was a bottle left behind in the crime scene that the perpetrators had been drinking from. There was a fight between my father and the perpetrator, so there must have been transference of evidence onto his clothing. He was fighting for his life. There was probably evidence under his fingernails. The crime scene itself would have contained evidence from the perpetrators, whether it's ballistics or transference of hair or even skin cells. If people are sweating, they are obviously under stress. And what happened there is that when my mother, who fortunately wasn't killed, when she called for help, a number of people arrived on the crime scene, which often happens. So it was neighbours, it was family, it was security guards, paramedics, first on crime scene responders, which are your visible policing unit. By the time the crime scene investigators arrived, and those are the guys that actually are trained to collect forensic evidence, they had no idea what was left behind on the crime scene by the perpetrators, nor what people had brought into the crime scene. And furthermore, family and friends, by the time we got back from the hospital, had cleaned up the crime scene so that they wouldn't offend us. So when we went and tried to find out, well, where was the bottle that we knew the police had collected from the crime scene, they said, well, we don't have the technology to uplift DNA evidence from that, which at the time was untrue. When we looked for the clothing, because so much evidence is transferred onto a victim's clothing, the hospital and the paramedics didn't know where it was. They had discarded it and trying to save his life. When we looked at the autopsy report, the pathologists hadn't taken crucial scrapings from under his fingernails. So you can see now that there are a number of people that are involved that need to be educated and need to be made aware that forensic evidence occurs in all forms, and therefore we all need to take steps to protect and secure a crime scene so that by the time the forensic evidence experts arrive to collect the evidence, there is in fact a preserved and protected crime scene. And that is why we need to look at all actions of many different people to assist this process going forward and stop frustrating it.